Hello everyone, welcome to our little talk show. Today we were going to talk about movies, but not just about entertainment, but about the possibilities of the future of humanity. Well, I'm Pranat Hautami as your host today, and here I'm with two speakers will accompany me in discussing climate fiction films. And for two our speakers, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jordan Danangjaya. I am the first speaker.
For the
Hi,
second?
I'm Nida Uljinan Maimunah as the second speaker, and I'm not here as the theory expert, but more as a film lover and a regular audience.
Okay, before we get into the topic, I'm curious. Have you ever watched a disaster film that initially felt innocent, but then made you think or even became paranoid?
The first time I watched a disaster movie, it made me realize that human life can easily and suddenly die because of disaster. So as a Muslim, it made me rethink about my sins. So it really scares me.
Okay.
And for me, honestly, yes. At first, I think like disaster movies feel over the top, like everything is collapsing way too fast. But after watching them, especially now, sometimes I catch myself thinking like, what if this actually happens in real life? I mean, and it kind of stays in your head longer than you expect.
Okay. So, as a film viewers, have you ever felt that disaster film feel closer to this life?
Definitely, with all the extreme weather right now and environmental issues that we saw recently, I think disaster films don't feel that far from reality, and they feel less like a fiction and more like a dramatic version of what's already happening around us.
Ah, and then, from a theological perspective, why are humans attracted to stories about destruction?
I think the most basic things is like we kind of want to know how the distraction happened and how are people living after that distraction, or maybe even how people in that time trying to fix the problem that made the distraction happen.
Then, when we heard the term science fiction, many people immediately imagine alien or Earth-kind technology. But today we were focusing on climate fiction. Simply put, what is climate fiction like?
From my point of view, it is a story that gives us the possibility of the future of a natural disaster that can happen in the future if something or a mistake has been done by humans or maybe naturally. It acts as a reminder to us humans to always preserve the nature to live with.
Okay. For the second speaker?
But I think for me, climate fiction is a genre that uses environmental disasters as the core of the story. So it's kind of like the plot is only about environmental issues. And the plot usually revolves around how someone survived or about a chaotic world changing. And then I think it's scary but also very grounded, yeah, because it's based on real environmental issues.
Mhm. Okay. To the second speaker. In general, how do climate fiction film depict the climate crisis?
I think for me, they usually show it through extreme visuals like flooded cities or like collapsing buildings and temperature changes. But beyond the visuals, they will hack like how fragile human panic really is when like facing the nature or facing the changing climate changing something kind of that.
Okay. For the first speakers, conceptually, what differences climate fiction from other science fiction? So, what do you think of as a fan of climate fiction films? Are there any example or visuals or film story that are similar to current condition?
So conceptually, what makes climate fiction apart from other sci-fi is that the danger feels real and familiar to us. Most sci-fi deals with something like alien invasion, distant future, advanced technologies, but climate fiction, on the other hand, is told in real environmental science and problems that already happen. The story usually takes place in the present or near future, and humans are often both the cause of the crisis and the one suffering from it. Because of that, climate fiction feels like fantasy and more like a warning. The example movies are it is the day after tomorrow example. It's so extreme weather, flooding, and sudden climate shift, which may be exaggerated but are similar to the rising number of heat wave, storms, and floods we see today.
Okay. And then, why is the climate crisis system often chosen as the background of stories?
I think because the author wants to show us the dangerous possibility that can happen because humans act on nature.
Okay. If we look at Indonesia, there are floods everywhere, volcanic eruption, drug identity, change in seasons. Do these films still feel like fiction to you?
Sometimes, yes, when they are not exaggerating the story, but also sometimes no, if they do.
Well, I think it's like not really because you see floods everywhere almost happen every year, and then like forest fires and unpredictable seasons, these films start to feel like imagination and more like a warning, maybe for me.
Okay, for the first speakers, in your opinion, what is the theoretical reflection of the current climate crisis and human behavior, especially in our country?
Just like the theory of Abraham Maslow about hierarchy of needs, we humans always go back to the first needs, which are the first stage. It is the physiological needs, which are food, shelter, and also sleep, something like that.
Okay. So for the second speaker, so what do you think as a fan of climate fiction films? Are there any example of visual or film stories that are similar to current condition?
As a fan, yeah, especially scenes that show mass of evacuations or people struggling to find necessities, and those moments really resemble what we see on the news today. And just as the film from the film and the reality, it's just the difference is just on a larger scale.
Okay. In your opinion, are these films just scary or do they reflect reality on perfect solutions?
I think this film always wanted to combine all of the things you said about scary or reflect reality, but sometimes I cannot see how they gonna solve that problem.
But for me, I think they're more than just scary because they reflect reality and make us question our priorities when we survive. I mean, like when we have nothing, we will find food, some food, or take place to sleep. Even if they don't give direct solutions, they push us to be more aware and critical in the films.
Okay. Well, friends, for your information, to read climate fiction genre film more deeply, we can use Maslow hierarchy of need theory. For the first speakers, simply put, Maslow explained that the human needs of third drug. Could you briefly explain that level of human needs and how Maslow views human needs in a crisis?
Okay, so I'm gonna explain it. The Maslow explained five hierarchy of needs. The first one is physiological needs. The thing that I said earlier, like sleep, eat, shelter, because the human body cannot function optimally if those needs didn't are not satisfied. After the first one is satisfied, the second one is safety and security needs. Needs can be fulfilled by the family and the societal structure, such as law enforcement, medical care, social stability, and also property. After that is satisfied, the third one is love and belongingness. It
Wow.
including friendship, family, and romantic relationship. After that, the fourth one is esteem needs. So what is esteem needs? It includes self-respect, achievement, and recognition from another people. So you want another people look at you and yeah, and think that you have achieved something. And then the last one is self-actualization. It is the pursuit of realizing one full potential through personal growth, creativity, achieving meaningful goals. Maslow described it as the desire to become everything one is capable of becoming. In human crisis or disaster, we can see that human lost many things, sometimes even their house or job.
Right.
The most important thing they need is, of course, food, shelter, and sleep. So we can assume that the first physiological needs are the most that humans need in crisis or disaster.
Absolutely.
I see. So for the second speakers, in film, how are these changing needs usually depicted?
So, I think we can see that in disaster films, we can clearly see how people immediately let go of their wealth, status, or like positions. Things like money, power, or something like social titles suddenly become meaningless, like they are nothing to them. When everything collapses, those things can't protect them anymore. And what matters most is basic survival, just like the first speaker said, such as like finding food, water, warmth, and a safe place to stay. And characters who were once powerful or wealthy are shown struggling just like everyone else, like they have nothing to do. And as a viewer, it really shows that in a crisis, humans are forced to return their most basic needs and all higher level goals are pushed aside.
Well, it is so interesting, friends. And this situation like disaster or climate change, without us raising it, humans often descend to their most basic needs. And this pattern often appears in the climate fiction film we will discuss. After this, we will see how the three films depict humans when their basic needs are threatened. When we think of Roland Emmerich 2012, the most memorable images are usually the massive destruction. The city collapses, the giant tsunami, and the global panic. I remember very clearly when this film was a hit. There were predictions of the end of the world in 2012, and this film was released. This 2012 will tell the story of the end of the world due to a massive natural disaster and the struggle of Walter Jackson to save his family from the disaster. From the film also showed the world government secretly building a rescue ark in the Himalayas. While the public is unaware of this, but in today's discussion, our focus is not just disaster spectacle, but rather on climate science that raises fundamental question about humanity.
Right.
But what is interesting is that this film doesn't really ask how to save the earth, but rather who is saved and with what values. At this point, the film 2012 can be read through Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, which views human as creator with hierarchy needs, ranging from survival to the search meaning in life. The question is, what happened to the hierarchy of human needs when the world collapses? Does it continue to function or does it collapse along with civilization? What do you think about this, Sister Nida, as two speakers?
So, as a viewer, yeah, I feel like 2012 clearly shows how human priorities instantly collapse when the world falls apart. I mean, like all the things that usually matters, like status, money, and success, suddenly feel meaningless. Just like as I said before, and what stands out is how survival becomes the only goal, and the film subtly questions whether humanity is still fair when resources are limited.
Okay. So as a general viewers, what is not most in 2012 what the sense of panic and the quest for survival? Do you think this film successfully evoked the human survival instinct?
I think for me, yes.
That's right. While watching this film, I also feel tense and imagine how to survive if that really happened. Interestingly, even though the world is still chaotic and unsafe, this film highlights the issue of family, where the main character survive and find a way to save his family. Do you think this focus on family makes the story more emotional and relatable, or is too narrow?
For me, I think the focus on family actually makes the story more emotional and relatable because even in a global disaster, the films reminds us that people don't fight for abstract ideas first, but rather they fight for the people they love. It may feel narrow, but that's what makes it human because the human instinct to save the people they love.
Okay. Maslow theory states that humans have hierarchical from survival to the search for meaning in life. The film 2012 interesting because almost all of these needs are tested to the extreme. But what do you think about the main character's decision to prioritize his love or family over his own needs during the crisis?
In my opinion, from a Maslow perspective, I think it's interesting because love and belonging appear even when safety isn't guaranteed. Because as a viewer, I don't see it was unrealistic because it's human instinct to save the people they love. I mean, because in real life, emotional bonds often become the reason people keep going. Because when we love something, I mean, it can become the motivated for us, right? And even when survival itself is uncertain.
Ah, then, when linked to Maslow, this is interesting because the need for love arises even when basic needs are not yet secure. Throughout 2012, we see that when the world collapses, humans return to their most basic needs. We all hope to survive, be safe, and be with our loved ones. But the film also leaves us with a big question. Is survival alone enough? Perhaps 2012 is not the most critical climate fiction, but the film effectively shows how humans react to crisis. And that is relevant to our reality today.
Okay.
Ah, there is another film by Roland Emmerich about climate fiction, The Day After Tomorrow,
It's interesting.
2004. It has a concept similar to 2012, telling the story of human who must struggle to survive while their lives are under threat. Could you explain it, Jordan?
Well, this film truly tells the story of human civilization,
Oh,
which was built over centuries, can be destroyed in an instant.
interesting.
This one is really thriving.
So, in Maslow theory, we know that the highest need is self-actualization. In this film, the characters are portrayed as trying to achieve self-actualization
Self-actualization.
at the
Yeah,
start of the movie.
right.
Some want scientific validation,
Mhm.
others aim to protect political and economic interests, and some are at the peak of their social status. However, all of that suddenly collapse, and
Mm.
they are forced to return to the most basic need, which is survival.
Survival.
Okay, survival. What kind of disaster is actually happening?
And the disaster that occurs is a series of extreme climate events caused by global warming, which triggers a new ice age. So everything flows. This include massive floods, tsunamis,
Mm.
tornadoes, and sudden freezing with extreme temperatures minus 150 Fahrenheit, threatening
Mm. So cool.
the entire northern hemisphere, especially in New York. It begins when the Atlantic Ocean current stops, causing drastic weather change within just a few days.
Mm. That's so scary.
That's super scary. What happens to the people there?
Of course, they are forced to go back to the very beginning. Survival in a situation where tall buildings are submerged in water and
Mm.
people experience sudden most freezing. They are trying to form groups and help one another because Humans cannot survive alone,
Right,
right?
indeed.
The most basic thing they need are warmth and food.
Okay.
Indeed.
Oh, so interesting. Is there any moment that you think is too important for that movie?
Sure, there is important moment when the President of United States dismissed Professor Hall's warning about climate change and prioritize economic and political interests instead of the country. However, he eventually takes responsibility and order rescue missions. This show that he initially the first one he seek is the self-actualization from the hierarchy of needs, but such as power status and political goals, rather than sociological needs and safety of the people of the country. Then there is one another significant moment takes place in the library. As the temperatures it drops so low to an extreme level, the groups need warmth, right? And they are forced to burn the book in the library. However, there is one, the librarian, he refused to burn the rare Gutenberg Bible because he believed that human survival lost its meaning if humanity cannot preserve its history and achievement. In this scene, we can see a clear contrast. Most people prioritize survival, right?
Right.
Meanwhile, another one is prioritize self-actualization. He chose the soul over the body.
So interesting.
Okay, that's fascinating. It is almost as if he is trying to preserve the top of the pyramid so they have something to climb back up to launch the strong phases.
Exactly. And if you really look at it, the first thing they burn is the tax code. All that stuff about law, bureaucracy, safety, and status
Yeah.
gone first. They burn it first. Faith, symbolizes by the Bible, is the very last thing they are willing to give up.
Okay, so what is the takeaway from all this?
Basically, climate fiction is reminding us that if we don't take care of the foundation, the earth is itself, then everything human have built, all our achievement and values can end up as nothing more than fuel, just like the books, just to keep us alive for one more hour.
Okay, thanks so much. That's a really strong message.
That's right.
And from today's discussion, we can see the climate fiction films are not just about destruction, but about how humans respond when their basic needs are threatened. Film like 2012 show how survival and safety become the main priorities, while The Day After Tomorrow remind us that even in crisis, human connection and solidarity still matter. Through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we understand that crisis does not erase human needs; it reshapes them. People move between survival and meaning, depending on the situation. This is why climate fiction feels increasingly relevant today, as many of the issues shown in this film are already happening in real life, including in Indonesia.
Right.
So perhaps the real question this film raises is not how the world ends, but how humans choose to act in time of crisis. Thank you to our speaker and to everyone who joined this discussion. I'm
Thank
Renata
you.
Thank you.
and to our speakers. And this has been Human in Crisis Climate Fiction, short Maslow Hierarchy of Needs. See you in the next discussion. Bye bye.
See you. Thank you.